My in-laws made a list of rules for educated wives and sent it to the whole neighborhood. My husband laughed it off, so I graduated, passed the bar, and filed just like they joked about. I was standing in my kitchen when my phone buzzed with a message from my neighbor, Linda. The subject line was, "Did you see this?" She attached a PDF called Rules for Educated Wives, and before I even opened it, I felt my stomach drop. The email had been sent out by my mother-in-law, Barbara, to our entire neighborhood group chat. Over 60 people, including my boss's wife. Rule 1 said, an educated wife should never flaunt her degree over her husband's paycheck. Rule 4 said, if she works, she must still make dinner by 6 p.m. sharp. And Rule 7, my favorite, said, a wife who argues like a lawyer belongs in court, not in a home. At the bottom, it was signed. A note from the Henderson family, which meant it was also from my husband, Nate. When I confronted him that night, he laughed. "Babe, calm down," he said between bites of his burger. "Mom was just joking. Everyone knows you're intense." "Intense?" I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "She sent this to my neighbors, Nate," he shrugged. "Maybe don't take it so personally. You do act like you're on cross-examination half the time." That line hit me hard. Because, yeah, I'd been in law school for 3 years and the bar exam was coming up. Nate had once said he was proud of me. He'd helped me study. Or at least I thought he had. But that night, I realized something I hadn't wanted to see. I was the only one in our marriage who believed in my success. The next morning, my father-in-law, Ken, dropped by while I was leaving for class. He leaned against his truck and smirked. "Don't worry, sweetheart," he said. "Once you pass your little test, you can start drafting our wills for free." I didn't respond. I just got in my car and drove away, gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers went white. That night, Barbara posted the same list on Facebook, tagging me and writing, "Maybe we should all remind our girls what matters most." And my husband, my own husband, commented with a laughing emoji and said, "Guess I'm married to a future prosecutor, better be careful." That's when I knew they didn't see me as part of their family anymore. I was a punchline to them, so I made a silent promise to myself right then and there. I'd pass that bar exam. I'd pass it the first time. And then I'd file, just like they joked about. Because if they thought I was too educated to be a good wife, I'd show them exactly what an educated woman can do when she's underestimated. And they had no idea what was coming next. When I met Nate, I was 24, fresh out of undergrad, and working as a paralegal in Chicago. He was charming in that small-town, steady kind of way, worked in sales, had a loud laugh, and made me feel like I could finally stop trying so hard to impress people. He came from a little suburb outside Peoria, the kind of place where everyone still knows everyone from high school. His parents, Barbara and Ken, ran a local insurance agency, had a big white house, matching Christmas sweaters, and a reputation. They were the family who threw the biggest 4th of July party, the ones people envied and hated in equal measure. The first time I met them, Barbara hugged me too tight and said, "Finally, a normal girl." I laughed, not realizing that what she actually meant was someone who hasn't gotten too big for her britches yet. Things were fine at first. We got engaged after a year and I started law school 6 months later. Barbara's face fell when we announced it over dinner. She said, "Oh, honey, law school, that's a lot. Won't that be hard on your marriage?" Ken nodded. "You'll be spending more time with books than with your husband. That's not how a family starts." Nate brushed it off back then. "She'll be fine. She's the smartest person I know." I thought that meant he had my back. But after the wedding, something in him shifted. Little comments started creeping in. When I studied late, he'd say, "You'll never let that go, huh? Always have to be right." When I missed a family barbecue for finals, Barbara would text me pictures of the whole group smiling around the grill with the caption, "We missed you, kind of." And then came the nickname Miss Attorney. They used it constantly. "Miss Attorney, can you pass the salt? Miss Attorney, tell us, do we need a contract to get your attention these days?" It was all jokes, but I could feel the bite behind everyone. Nate never told them to stop. He said I was too sensitive, that they were old-fashioned. But the truth was, he liked it. He liked being the golden son, the one who kept his wife humble. The worst was the Christmas dinner 2 years ago. I had just finished my second semester with top grades, and Barbara made a toast. "To our hardworking daughter-in-law," she said, raising her wine glass. "May she remember that no degree teaches you how to keep a husband." Everyone laughed, even Nate. That was the first time I looked at him and felt something die. After that, I started keeping score. I noted every time they belittled me, every time he didn't defend me, every joke that stung for days. By the time the email happened, the one they sent to the neighborhood, I already had my plan in motion. Because while they were laughing, I was studying, documenting, and quietly preparing to make sure that when I finally left, I'd take more than just my pride with me. The rules for educated wives, email should have been the peak of their cruelty. But it wasn't. It was only the start. After it went around, people stopped looking me in the eye at the grocery store. My professor even mentioned it privately. He said someone forwarded it to him as a joke. He didn't laugh. I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. When I confronted Nate again, he said, "It's just my mom being extra. Don't give her the attention she wants." But then I noticed something worse. He'd shared it on his Facebook too. His caption, "Guess I married a feminist lawyer. Pray for me," guy's face with tears of joy. My classmates saw it. My study group saw it. One of them, a girl named Jordan, pulled me aside after class and said, "Hey, is everything okay at home?" I lied. Said it was fine. But I went to my car and cried so hard I had to sit there for 20 minutes before I could drive. A week later, Barbara posted another masterpiece. This time it was a funny video on TikTok of Nate doing dishes while she narrated. Lesson of the day: when your wife's too smart to cook, train your son early. It hit over 20,000 views. People commented things like "girl power, lol, and he's whipped." And Nate, he loved it. He started playing along. Every time I mentioned my bar prep, he'd film a clip pretending to hide from me behind a book and tag it lawwife. The thing is, I was living on student loans, and he was still paying most of the rent. That was his favorite line: "My money, my house." He'd say it whenever I asked him to take something down. Then one night, I came home from class to find Barbara and Ken sitting in my living room, sipping wine like they owned the place. Barbara said, "We thought we'd surprise you too. Family dinner." I stared at the table. They'd ordered takeout from my favorite place. But then Ken handed me an envelope. "Just something to keep you motivated." Inside was a mock divorce decree printed on fancy paper. Under petitioner, it said Miss Attorney. Under respondent, it said her exhausted husband. The grounds: too smart for her own good. I couldn't speak. My hands were shaking so hard the paper made a rustling sound. Nate was laughing. "Come on, babe, lighten up, it's funny." That night I slept in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, knowing something had permanently broken. Because up until then, I'd been surviving on the idea that maybe Nate was just spineless, that he didn't know how cruel his parents really were. But now I saw the truth. He enjoyed being in on the joke. He liked that I was humiliated, because it made him feel powerful again. So I decided if they were going to turn my education into a punchline, I'd make sure the last laugh cost them everything. And I had the perfect opportunity coming up, one they would never see coming. 3 weeks before the bar exam, I came home early from the library. It was raining hard, the kind of night where the city feels gray and empty. I just wanted to take a shower and sleep. When I walked in, Nate wasn't in the living room. His laptop was open on the kitchen counter, Spotify still playing one of my study playlists. I was about to close it when a new email notification popped up: subject: draft, helping you win her back. It was from Barbara. Normally, I'd never read someone's email. But after months of public humiliation, I didn't even hesitate. I clicked it. The message froze my blood. Barbara had written, "Ken and I spoke with Laura last night. She's agreed to the timeline if you're serious about moving forward. She said she still loves you and will wait until things are finalized. We'll help with the down payment if you need it. No woman wants to walk into a fixer-upper after being promised a family home. Just make sure you act before she passes that exam and complicates things." At the bottom was a string of hearts, and attached was a picture of Nate and a woman I didn't recognize, sitting close together at a restaurant I knew. He had his arm around her shoulders. I felt my throat close up. "Laura." I said her name out loud like it might make it less real. My husband wasn't just mocking me behind my back, he was planning to replace me. And his parents were helping him do it. I went to our bedroom and opened the drawer where he kept his documents. There it was, a printed Zillow listing for a house in his parents' neighborhood. The title scrawled at the top said, "Offer pending." My name wasn't on it. That night, I didn't confront him. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just sat on the couch until the sun came up, watching the rain stop, and made a decision. If he wanted to play this game, I'd play it smarter. I started by calling my friend Jordan, the same one who'd asked if I was okay after seeing the Facebook post. She was clerking at a small firm that specialized in family law. I told her everything. She didn't say much, just, okay, then we make a record. Over the next 2 weeks, I started quietly building my case. I took photos, screenshots, even recorded a few conversations when Barbara or Nate made jokes about me being replaceable. Meanwhile, I studied for the bar like my life depended on it, because it did. The day before the exam, Nate asked me to sign something for the lease renewal. My gut told me to read it first. It wasn't a renewal, it was a quitclaim deed, transferring my name off the property. That was it. I signed nothing. I packed my exam bag and looked him dead in the eyes. "You'll get your signature," I told him, "just not the one you're expecting." And I meant it, because by the time I was done, I wasn't just going to leave him. I was going to take back every ounce of dignity, respect, and control they'd tried to strip from me. The day I finished the bar exam, I didn't go home. I went straight to Jordan's office. She looked at me and said, "So, we doing this?" I said, "We're doing this." From that point on, everything became methodical, cold, strategic. I treated it like any other case, except this time I was the client and I wasn't losing. Step 1, gather evidence. I compiled every screenshot, text, and social media post. The TikToks, the Facebook comments, the fake divorce decree, the emails, every single thing that painted a picture of humiliation, coercion, and emotional cruelty. Step 2, financial records. Jordan helped me quietly pull credit reports, joint account statements, and property files. That's how we found out Nate had already started diverting funds into a new account, one with Laura's name attached as a business partner. They were setting up a fake LLC, LNK Properties. The initials made me sick. Laura, Nate, Ken. Step 3, timing. I knew Barbara and Ken were planning a big party at their house the following month. The Henderson Family Appreciation Barbecue. It was basically a yearly parade of their self-importance. Every neighbor, every family friend, they'd all be there. Perfect. I told Jordan, "That's the day I want to serve him." She blinked. "At the party," I nodded. "In front of his parents. In front of everyone who laughed at me." Step 4, preparation. While Nate thought I was celebrating finishing the exam, I started separating everything quietly. My paychecks from my part-time clerk job went into a new bank account. I changed my passwords, my mailing address, even my emergency contacts. I also visited a locksmith. Nate didn't notice a thing. He was too busy texting Laura and planning their future, thinking I was too buried in bar results anxiety to see straight. At home, I played along. I smiled. I cooked dinner. I let him believe everything was normal. Because the thing about manipulators is, they always underestimate silence. One night, Barbara called to check in. She said, "When this all ends, sweetheart, remember, men like Nate need women who support, not compete." I said, "You're absolutely right, Barbara." I couldn't agree more. She sounded pleased. "See, I knew you'd come around." What she didn't know was that, at that very moment, I had her voice on record, and her words would later be attached to emotion, proving a pattern of emotional harassment from both her and Nate. The day of the barbecue, I got dressed carefully. Light blue sundress. No makeup, no jewelry, just calm. I wasn't there to make a scene. I was there to end one. As I drove over, I rehearsed every step in my head. The timing, the expression, the exact moment the process server would walk up. Because this wasn't revenge out of rage. It was revenge out of clarity. I was done begging them to see me as human. Now they'd see me as what they feared most, a woman who knew the law better than they did. 2 nights before the barbecue, I got a call from an unknown number while I was packing up documents for Jordan. I almost ignored it. But something made me answer. "Is this Mrs. Henderson?" a woman's voice asked. I hesitated. "Who's calling?" "My name's Laura," she said quietly. "You don't know me, but I think you should." I froze. Her voice was small, nervous. She said she'd found my number through an old text Nate sent her, one where he bragged about how she's too busy playing lawyer to notice what's going on. I said nothing, just listened. She told me she was sorry, that she hadn't known he was still living with me, that he'd said we were separated but keeping up appearances until my exam was over. That line almost made me laugh. He wanted me focused, not suspicious. I'd been studying for my future while he was rehearsing his, but then her voice cracked. I didn't know what kind of person he really was until last week, she said. He's been using me. It came out piece by piece. The house I'd found on Zillow, she'd been the one to sign the purchase papers, with a $40,000 loan from Barbara and Ken. But she'd just discovered the money came from my joint account. They drained it a little at a time, through shared bills and fake reimbursements Nate had been sending his parents. I sat down on the floor, dizzy. He took my money to buy her a house? Yes, she whispered. And now he's telling me he's leaving me too. He said he can't risk his parents finding out. It hit me like ice water. Nate wasn't just planning to replace me, he was planning to scam both of us. I told her everything. The emails, the mock divorce, the plan for the party. There was a long silence, and then she said something I'll never forget. Then let me help. At first, I didn't believe her. But the next morning, she sent me everything. Copies of their messages, screenshots of money transfers, even a selfie they took the day they opened their LLC, LNK Properties. In the corner of the picture was a document. I zoomed in. It wasn't just any property title. It was under a trust. The trustee, Barbara Henderson. So that was their plan. Barbara and Ken weren't just helping Nate cheat. They were laundering the money through a family trust, using my account to make it look like I'd invested in it. If they'd succeeded, they could have claimed half my income as shared business assets in a divorce. It wasn't about love. It wasn't even about pride. It was about money. That realization snapped something inside me. I wasn't the naive wife anymore. I was their mark, and they'd nearly pulled it off. So, with Jordan's help, we rewrote my plan. The barbecue wasn't just going to be the divorce papers. It was going to be a full legal detonation. Because now I wasn't just filing for divorce. I was filing for fraud. The morning of the barbecue, Jordan called me with something she'd found while pulling records for the fraud claim. Her voice was low, controlled. Sit down for this, she said. Turns out Barbara and Ken's insurance agency wasn't just an insurance agency. It was a shell company. They'd been using it to funnel money between fake subsidiaries for years, money that came from clients' policies. Essentially, small-scale embezzlement. The state was already investigating them for irregularities in client payouts. And guess whose name had started showing up in some of those transfers? Mine, through Nate. Apparently, when we got married, Barbara convinced him to make me a silent partner on paper. They'd told him it was a tax advantage, something about writing off business expenses since I was in law school. But what it really did was tie my name to their books. If I'd gone down with them, it would have destroyed my career before it even began. And the email Barbara sent to the neighborhood, the rules for educated wives, suddenly made perfect sense. It wasn't just humiliation. It was damage control. They were painting me as emotional, unstable, arrogant, someone whose credibility could be questioned later. If I ever found out about their fraud and tried to expose them, they wanted everyone to already think I was just the dramatic lawyer wife who couldn't take a joke. That's why Nate had laughed everything off. That's why they kept pushing me to sign documents without reading them. That's why they needed me distracted. It wasn't about keeping me in my place. It was about keeping me in position, close enough to use, far enough to discard. I sat in my car outside the Henderson house, watching the white tent they'd set up on the lawn for their guests, and I realized how coldly calculated it all was. They hadn't just mocked me. They'd planned to ruin me. Barbara was in it for the money. Ken was in it because he'd do anything to protect her. And Nate was in it because he wanted to be his parents' golden boy again. He didn't marry me for love. He married me for leverage, my degree, my future, my potential income. To them, I wasn't a wife. I was an asset that had stopped being useful. So when I started law school, that wasn't me growing too ambitious for their family. It was me becoming a threat to their con. Jordan's voice came through the phone again. You ready for this? I said, more than ever. We'd arranged everything. The process server, the financial filings, even a quiet contact in the state attorney's office who'd been waiting for more evidence to act on the Henderson investigation. All I had to do was show up. I hung up, took a deep breath, and looked at myself in the rearview mirror. For the first time in months, I didn't feel scared. I felt powerful. Because the people who had spent years trying to convince everyone I was too emotional, too dramatic, too much were about to learn exactly what happens when an educated wife stops playing nice. The Henderson Family Appreciation Barbecue started at noon sharp. By 12:15, every lawn chair was filled, the music was loud, and Barbara was already parading around in her floral dress like she was hosting a fundraiser for sainthood. I parked 2 houses down, walked up the driveway with a calm smile, and felt about 50 pairs of eyes land on me. Barbara froze mid-laugh. "Well, look who finally decided to join the family," I smiled back. "Wouldn't miss it." Nate was standing near the grill, beer in hand, fake charm plastered across his face. He started to say something, but before he could, a man in a dark suit approached him. "Mr. Henderson," the man said. "You've been served." The chatter around us died immediately. Nate blinked, confused, until he looked down and saw the envelope. Divorce petition, fraud documentation, asset freeze. Then a second process server stepped up, this one for Barbara and Ken. "You've been served as well." Barbara's face went pale. "Excuse me, there must be a mistake." Jordan appeared from behind the crowd, professional and cool. "No mistake, Mrs. Henderson. You might want to read the exhibits before you speak." There were whispers spreading fast. People were pulling out their phones. A few even started recording. I turned to Barbara and said, "Funny thing about being an educated wife. Turns out, we know how to read financial disclosures." Ken started stammering. "You can't, this is private business." "Actually," I cut in, "fraud against policyholders isn't private. The Attorney General's office will be in touch. Oh, and that LLC, LNK Properties, you'll be hearing about that too." Then I looked straight at Nate. "You used my name, you drained my account. You tried to make me the fall guy for your parents' crimes." His voice cracked. "You don't understand." "No," I said, calm and steady. "I finally do." Right on cue, 2 unmarked cars pulled up at the curb. Plainclothes investigators got out, flashed badges, and walked straight to Barbara and Ken. One of them nodded at me as they passed. The silence that followed was like something out of a movie. Guests started backing away. Barbara tried to keep smiling, stuttering about a misunderstanding, but the agents were already asking for paperwork. I didn't stay to watch them get questioned. I'd already said what I needed to. As I walked away, I heard someone whisper, "Guess she really is a lawyer." I smiled. By that evening, word had spread across the neighborhood. The Facebook posts disappeared, the TikToks were wiped, and Nate's phone blew up with messages that he didn't answer. Because, by then, his accounts were frozen and his parents were being questioned for fraud. A week later, my bar results came in. I passed. When Jordan called to tell me, I laughed until I cried. All those nights of being mocked for studying, all those jokes about belonging in court, it turned out they were right. I did belong there, just not in the way they imagined. I signed my final divorce papers a month later. No settlement, no apology, just freedom. The last time I saw Nate was in court when he tried to meet my eyes and say, "You didn't have to destroy everything." I said, "You shouldn't have built it on me." Then I walked out, head high, diploma in hand, and didn't look back. Because the truth is, revenge wasn't about making them hurt. It was about reminding them that I was never theirs to humiliate. And if Barbara ever writes another list, I hope she adds one more rule. Never underestimate a woman who knows the law.